Hello, and welcome back to the channel. It's Emmy the Cat Lady here, and we are back with the Science of Foliate series today to talk about the Bighorners, which are ruminant species that you find in Foliate, New Vegas. So the Bighorners are mutated from the bighorn sheep Ovis canadensis, which is a species of sheep that's native to North America. They are quite large as a sheep species, so they can weigh up to 143 kilograms, which is 315 pounds, and a pair of their horns can weigh up to 14 kilograms or 30 pounds. So that's where obviously the name comes from, that they do have these big horns. So the species originally crossed from Siberia over the Bering Land Bridge into North America, and the population expanded across a large area of North America, and to the point where the bighorn sheep do play a role in the mythology of Native Americans. However, the population declined quite severely by 1900 due to diseases that were introduced by European livestock brought over and overhunting of the bighorn sheep as well. They are a native species in the western United States, and there is a number of subspecies. They're obviously named for the large horns, which the rams especially have really large curved horns. The females do also have horns, but they tend to be a bit smaller and a bit less curved as well. These species are quite well adapted to living in mountains, cliffs and hills, that kind of rugged landscape, so they're good at climbing and walking on these kind of surfaces. Unfortunately, they are very susceptible to diseases that domestic sheep carry, such as sauroptic scabies, which is a type of mange caused by Sauroptes mites, and pneumonia, which is a common problem in a lot of domestic animals as well. There is also kind of a higher mortality rate in these animals from falling off cliffs and that kind of thing. But they are well adapted to that steep terrain, and that does help them evade some of the predators that they have, such as coyotes, wolverines, jaguars and golden eagles. Usually it is the lambs that these predators hunt. For adults, the main threats would be your bears, both black bears and grizzlies, and wolves, mountain lions, as well as humans. They are a species that are hunted by humans as well. They're herbivores, so they graze on the grass and shrubs and the plants, finding natural salt sources to get their minerals from. They do live in large herds, and there's not one single kind of alpha male or leader ram in charge of the herd. However, during the mating season, which is known as the rut, they do try and establish a sort of dominance hierarchy amongst the rams in the herd. For the ewes, their hierarchy is mainly based on age, so the older ewes are higher up the chain essentially than the younger ones. So there was a massive kind of decline in the bighorn sheep population, mainly as a result of humans having an effect on them. So about 200 years ago, the population was estimated to be 150 to 200,000, and the most drastic decline was between 1870 and 1950, and this was due to unregulated hunting, destruction of their habitats, overgrazing, and diseases that were introduced from domestic livestock. There was a campaign spearheaded by the Arizona Boy Scouts in 1936 to try and save the species, which they have done successfully. And the bighorn sheep did play an important role in some Native American mythology, particularly for the Apsaluka, or the Crow tribe, which are based in Montana. And the desert bighorn sheep is the state animal of Nevada, so it does make sense that they're found in Foliate, New Vegas, and they are native to the Mojave Desert area. So we do come across them quite commonly. So if we head into Foliate, New Vegas, the Bighorners, you will find them in various places around the Mojave Wasteland and also in Zion Canyon, which is the national park in Honest Hearts, and is where you find them a lot in real life, the bighorn sheep. So the video and the photographs that I've got, most of them were taken in Zion National Park. So it's quite fitting to use them when we're talking about the ones in the game as well, I think. They do tend to stay close to water sources and to food, so they often are found where banana yucca grows, so that seems to be their favourite food for the species. So if you find a lot of banana yucca around, there's a good chance that you'll find some bighorners around as well. There's a quest in Honest Hearts, a little side quest to rescue a baby bighorner and take it back to its mother. And the way you do that is by feeding it the banana yucca to convince it to follow you. So it's clearly a favourite food for them. So they've mutated from the desert bighorn sheep, and the main change is that they are much larger than the ancestors and the real ones. They are fairly docile and calm. Even the wild ones don't tend to attack unless you start a fight with them, or if you get too close, especially if they have got young ones. I've not been able to find a group that has young ones, I think because this character's quite a high level. So most of the ones that spawn the leveled enemies are bulls, so they're kind of the toughest variant. They are quite strong, and they use their head and their horns to attack, and they can move surprisingly fast, so they can do a fair bit of damage if you're not prepared, but they're not too difficult to take down if you do find yourself in that kind of situation. The Bighorners have been domesticated to a degree, so Good Springs, you'll find them. That's one, obviously, they'll be the first place you come across them, because it's where the game begins, and it's one of the first things that you can see when you come out of Doc Mitchell's house, is that there is a small herd of Bighorners as well. And the super mutants of Jacobstown do also keep a herd of Bighorners. So the main things that they keep these animals for is their horns, their meat, their milk, and their hides. Unlike the Brahmin, they are not suitable as pack animals. They just refuse. If you ask Easy Pete about it in Good Springs, he'll tell you that if you try to put a pack on them, they'll just lie down until you take it off them again, and they'll just refuse to move. So they don't really have any kind of use in that regard, while the Brahmin are willing to carry loads for you. The Bighorners just won't do it, so there's not much you can do to convince them if they're not willing. It's interesting that in the game, the names for the different variants is what you'd expect with cattle. So the males are called bulls and the young ones are called calves. And obviously, so most people know that young sheep are lambs, males are rams, and females are ewes. But they are still classified as small ruminants, so I would assume that they have the similar sort of stomach anatomy as the cattle and the Brahmin that we discussed last week, so with the 4 chambers. Again, it's a common thing that is mentioned that they have 4 stomachs, but it's a 4-chambered stomach that each chamber has a kind of slightly different purpose in the process of digesting all the plant material and things that they have. So the interesting thing is that unlike the Brahmin and the deer, they only have 1 head. So really the main mutation seems to be just an increase in body size and an increase in size in general. Otherwise they seem to be fairly unaffected by the radiation and things, which is interesting. But yeah, they're quite interesting to see, and I say it's kind of interesting to have different species in the Mojave Wasteland that behave differently. So if you're wandering the wasteland, you come across, say, a handful of geckos, they're generally going to come charging at you and try to fight you. If you happen to be noticed by a cazador, you're in real trouble. Same goes for the death claws, but it's the same in nature in the real world that, you know, some animals are more likely to be aggressive towards humans, other animals are more likely to show fear and run away from us, and other animals might keep a watchful eye, but they'll not attack unless they're provoked. And having that kind of behaviour in this, it makes the world feel a bit more real, I think, that you've got these animals that there's obviously domesticated versions which are perfectly safe, but the wild version, they're not overtly aggressive, so they're not going to come and attack you as soon as they detect you like the deathclaws do. like the Casdors do, but if you get too close, especially if you get too close to a young one, or you attack first, then they're obviously going to fight to defend themselves and defend their herd and their territory. So that's fairly normal kind of animal behaviour for this kind of species. And I like that that's something that they included in the game, because it means that the wildlife feels quite realistic to what you would expect in the real world if you took a walk. That, you know, depending on what species you happen to run across, different things could potentially happen. So I find them quite interesting, and they don't play a massive role in the story or anything, but it's part of the kind of world building, is that, you know, these things just bring the wasteland to life and just make everything seem more real. I'll maybe try that again. So what I like about this is that while these species don't play a huge role in the game and the storyline or anything like that, there's not any real kind of side quests about them, other than that one in Honest Hearts, but they're just there to bring some life into the world and to make the environment a bit more varied and a bit more interesting. So you know, it's really good from a world building point of view, and just making the wasteland feel alive and giving you something to you know, pay attention to. And if, you know, Bighorners will attack other kind of aggressive species as well, so especially if you've got the animal friend perk that keeps them from attacking you, then, you know, they potentially could be a temporary ally as well. So it just makes things a bit more interesting and feel a bit more realistic. So I quite like them. I think they're quite cute as well. So that is the Bighorners, which are really big sheep basically, and they're an important part of the kind of wasteland economy in the Mojave region, particularly if you talk to the super mutants at Jacobstown. The herd of Bighorners that they maintain is an important thing for that little community. So I'll let Marcus explain why, and then I'll come back to you.
Bighorners. Good eating. And we can trade the hides. Got a lot of wild ones around here, so it's easy to restock the herd.
Thanks for that, Marcus. That's very helpful. So as you can see, they're an important part of the economy and the survival of several communities in the wasteland. So quite an interesting little thing. Hopefully you've found this interesting. I really enjoy making these videos, I have to say. Just learning, you know, I'm learning stuff that I didn't know, and I'm passing on what I've learned and what I already knew onto you guys, and hopefully making even just the little kind of background things, like, you know, creatures that aren't a big threat or anything like that. Because the thing that I love the most about any kind of fiction, whether it's games, whether it's books, movies, TV shows, the world building is one of the most interesting things for me, and it's something that I enjoy doing for my own work and my own writing, and it's something that I enjoy exploring in all of these sort of fictional worlds that I find interesting. So hopefully you found this interesting, and if there's anything that you didn't know, let me know. If there's anything that you know that you want to add, then absolutely add it to the comments. Any questions, any other thoughts on what we've talked about, I'm always happy to kind of chat with you guys in the comments about things. There's been a lot of support recently and a lot of comments on my videos, which is really exciting, and I do really appreciate it, and I do love being able to kind of chat and talk through some of these things. Yeah, lore and games and things is one of my favourite things. So if there is any subject particularly that you want to see me cover, let me know as well. I'd be more than happy to take a look and have a think about it. But that'll be me signing off. So next week we'll talk about the rad stags, which are another ruminant species that you encounter in Fallout 4. and then we'll see where we go after that. I'd like to do a whole series on Far Harbour, because the ecosystem that's present in Far Harbour and the bizarre creatures that they've got, definitely worthy of a whole series of videos in its own right. So that'll be something that I'm hoping to kind of get on to doing soon. But in the meantime, any thoughts, any questions, I'd love to hear it, and I will sign off, and I'll see you on Tuesday once I decide what the next Tuesday series is going to be. And I'll see you then. Bye.